The air in St. Agnes maternity ward held a specific late-night quiet, broken only by the light vibration of machinery and the distant rubber-soled shuffle of a nurse making her rounds. For Naomi Brooks, the world had narrowed to the feeling of cool starch sheets against her back and the unbearably painful rhythmic pressure building inside of her. The clock on the wall ticked past 2:17 a.m. Her husband, David, held her hand. His knuckles white, his voice steady. He murmured affirming words as an anchor in the storm of each contraction. Then a sound cleaved the quiet. A sharp, indignant cry that was angelic and beautifully human. Tears, hot and unchecked, spilled down Naomi's cheeks as a nurse placed a swaddled bundle in her arms. He was impossibly small. His face was a map of wrinkled newness. She traced the curves of his cheek with a trembling finger, and his crying hitched, then softened into a snuffling sigh. In that silent exchange, a universe was born. He had her father's chin and David's dark, serious eyebrows. Liam, David whispered, the name they'd chosen months ago settling over the child like a promise. Liam Brooks. For 3 hours, the world was perfect. The three of them existed in a warm, dimly lit cocoon. Liam nursed, slept, and made small sleeping sounds. Naomi memorized the feel of his weight against her chest, the scent of his skin, a blend of something clean and uniquely him. It was just before dawn when a different nurse entered. Her smile was professional and placid. The nurse announced to the Brooks, "It's time to take the baby for a few quick checks, you guys. Standard procedure, no worries. We'll have him back before you know it." Naomi agreed, but something in her stomach felt unsettled. The nurse wheeled the clear bassinet smoothly towards the door. Naomi's arms felt instantly, terribly empty. She watched the small capped head until it disappeared around the corner. She listened to the rubber cart wheels squeaking softly once, then falling silent. Welcome to Behind the Yellow Tape. I'm Mimi, and here we share some of the most spine-chilling, gut-stirring, mysterious crime stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. So if mystery and crime is your cup of tea, then you'll definitely get your fill here. We upload every Wednesday at 6:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you love a midweek dose of suspense, whether from your favorite seat, the car, before bed, or during your favorite activity, then leave a like to help build the algorithm. Also, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss an upload. Now, let's take a step behind the yellow tape. Little did she know, the squeak of those wheels was the last sound she'd have attached to her son. The dawn light bled from gray to pale gold outside the window. David dozed awkwardly in a chair. Naomi stared at the door. Every footstep in the hall was a potential herald. Every murmur of voices was a possible update. A slow, cold dread began to pull in her chest, a stark contrast to the physical warmth she held in her arms moments ago. An hour stretched into 2. David, now awake, went to the nurse's station to get an update. He returned, his face tight. Internally worried, but wanting to be reassuring, he looked at Naomi and explained, "They said it's taking a little longer, some backlog in the nursery." Another hour passed. The perfect warm cocoon of the room had grown cold and cavernous. Naomi's heartbeat, still synced to the phantom rhythm of her child beside her, began to hammer against her ribs. She pressed the call button, then pressed it again, holding it down. When the door finally opened, it was not a nurse. It was Dr. Evans, the obstetrician who had delivered Liam. His face, which was usually a mask of calm competence, was carefully, unusually neutral. He did not meet David or Naomi's eyes directly. "Mr. and Mrs. Brooks," he began, his voice low. He clasped his hands in front of him. "There's been a critical incident." The words that followed were a torrent of clinical soul-crushing euphemisms: cardiopulmonary distress, unforeseen complication, despite our most aggressive interventions. They were words that built a wall between Naomi and the truth. She heard only the final devastating sentence, delivered with a weight that crushed the air from the room. "We did everything we could," said the doctor. "I'm very sorry for your loss." The world did not go black. It shattered into a million sharp, colorless pieces. David made a sound like a wounded animal. Naomi felt nothing at all. An agonizing, howling nothingness in the same place the love of just hours before had roared so brightly. Her arms physically ached. The scent of Liam was still on her gown. They were given a box, a certificate of fetal death, instructions for a memorial service for an infant who had never left the building. Their son was gone, lost, erased before his life had even properly begun. On that same ward, moving through the routines of the night shift with automatic efficiency, was MARLA Cole. To her colleagues, she was quiet, capable, slightly withdrawn, a dedicated nurse who never called in sick. Despite her demeanor, they failed to see the ghost that lived behind her eyes. The ghost of a daughter, 11-year-old Sophia, who had died from a rapid and vicious case of meningitis 6 years prior. Grief hadn't softened with time for MARLA. It had calcified. It was a hard, sharp stone lodged in her chest, its edges grinding against her heart with every breath. She had watched Naomi Brooks all evening. She'd seen the organic, radiant love on the woman's face, a love that felt like a personal rebuke to her own empty arms. She assisted with the initial post-birth checks. She'd seen the tiny strawberry-colored birthmark on the baby's left forearm shaped like a faint crescent moon. When the order for the routine metabolic panel came, a diabolical, ill-conceived plan crystallized in MARLA's mind. It wasn't a frenzied impulse. It was a cold, logical way of stepping into a destiny she believed was owed to her. She knew the schedule. She knew the 3-minute blind spot when the security camera in the west hallway cycled. She knew which supply closet was rarely used after midnight. When the coast was clear, she casually entered into the nursery and took baby Brooks from the bassinet. Not with frantic or panicked hands, but with a steady, sure grip. She hummed a soothing lullaby as she wrapped him in a blanket from her own locker. She bypassed the main elevators, took the stairs down to the basement laundry level, and exited through a loading dock door propped open for a cigarette break that would never be traced back to her. She had brought an oversized coat to smoothly complete her agenda. As she placed him in the jacket, baby Liam stirred and let out a small cry. She hushed his cry against her shoulder. As the cold air stirred around them, MARLA zipped the baby inside the jacket against her body and walked into the darkness. By morning, in a small rented house 30 miles away, Liam Brooks was gone. In this place, he was Ethan Cole. MARLA had the forged birth certificate ready. She had a story about a hurried adoption from a cousin in another state. She loved him immediately, fiercely, with a desperate, all-consuming passion that left no room for doubt or remorse. She was saving him, she told herself. Saving him from a world that was cold and cruel. From the fate that had taken her Sophia. She was not a thief. She was a guardian angel. Ethan Cole grew up in a world of curated normalcy. It was a loving world, but it was a world with high invisible walls. MARLA homeschooled him until 4th grade. This resulted in a weak immune system. Their moves from one quiet town to another were always explained as fresh starts or better opportunities. Friendships were gently discouraged, sleepovers were an impossibility. The love was real, bedtime stories, patient help with homework, proud applause at science fairs. But it was love that smothered as much as it nurtured. Ethan's world was warm, safe, and very, very small. He knew he was loved. He never thought to question why that love felt so lonely or why his mother's eyes held a constant watchful fear. 18 sheltered years passed. Through life and school, Ethan blossomed impeccably. Entering his last year of high school, he was preparing to attend a very accredited local college to pursue a degree in business. At least, that's what he told his mom. Ethan's real passion was archaeology, and his actual plan was to pursue an archaeology degree at a college abroad. It would be his only chance to see life as his own person. It was his own personal secret. Through his years of archaeological studying, he would never imagine the dirt covering all the answers of his childhood would be dug up in the most casual way possible. Bored one evening, Ethan saw an advertisement for a popular DNA ancestry service. It seemed like harmless fun. So, with genuine curiosity, he ordered the kit, swabbed his cheek, mailed it off, and forgot about it. Weeks later, the results landed in his inbox. He scanned them with idle interest, looking for Scandinavian roots or distant cousins. Then he scrolled to the section labeled Immediate Family Matches. The field was blank. He refreshed the page. He logged out and back in. A cold, gut-wrenching chill seeped into his bones. According to the immutable logic of genetics, MARLA Cole, the woman who had raised him, was not listed as his biological mother. There was nothing, not even a faint, distant relation. This has to be a mistake, he thought to himself, a horrible, hilarious mistake. He called the company. They assured him that their results were 99.9% accurate. They asked if he was adopted. He said no. The customer service representative fell into a polite, confused silence. Without any other words, Ethan hung up the phone with anxiety beginning to erupt inside of him. That night, Ethan began to dig, not with anger, but with the meticulous focus of an archaeologist searching for his dream prehistoric victory. He found the old hidden moving boxes in the attic. Beneath the childhood drawings and report cards, he found a faded receipt from St. Agnes Hospital dated 18 years prior for postnatal supplies. His supposed birth certificate with the name Liam Brooks, issued in a country he'd never lived in, had a registration number that when he researched it, followed a pattern used for amended certificates. He found a single crumpled photo of MARLA looking years younger, standing outside a building whose sign clearly read, St. Agnes. He dissected and scrutinized every item in sight. He constructed a new, horrifying narrative. The mother he loved had built his life on a foundation of lies. Every for your own good, every nervous glance, every abrupt move now had a sinister, coherent meaning. Ethan couldn't believe what had unfolded in the matter of weeks. He couldn't believe the extent of betrayal. Disgusted and with a lump in his throat, Ethan decided he'd confront MARLA in the morning. His confrontation with MARLA was held in the same kitchen where she'd made him pancakes every Sunday. The air smelled of cleaning products and the familiar vanilla scent she always wore. She greeted him with the same "Good morning, son," the same warm, inviting smile, and open arms for a hug Ethan usually never refused. Today was different. Ethan walked into the kitchen and threw a small stack of papers at the woman he called Mother. "The DNA test says you're not my mother," he said, his voice frighteningly even. The printed results sat boldly on the table between them. MARLA's face drained of all color. She looked at the paper, then at him, her eyes wide with a terror he'd never seen before. Not fear for him, but fear of him, of the truth he now held. Her carefully constructed world was buckling. I saved you," she whispered, the words torn from a deep, ragged place. "They were going to let you die. I heard them. I took you to save you." It was a lie that she had told herself for so long it fell from her lips with the ring of truth. Ethan simply shook his head and stated, "My name is Liam Brooks. I read the old news articles about the baby who died at St. Agnes. He never died, did he?" The dam broke. MARLA didn't confess to a crime. She poured out a story of grief, of a hollow woman seeking a chance of wholeness and taking it. She spoke of love, of birthdays, of scraped knees and bedtime stories. She weaponized their shared history, trying to blur the lines between a kidnapper and mother. But the truth was a compass, and it pointed Ethan in one direction. With a fire of disparity, he set out to find his real parents. With the help of Detective Lina Morales, a cop who never closed a file on the Brooks infant death due to a missing autopsy report, Ethan, now reclaiming the name Liam, navigated the labyrinth of his own path. Hospital archives, digitized employment records, a grainy still from the loading dock camera that showed a figure in a nurse's uniform, all helped lead to Liam's new life chapter. Lina Morales was able to contact the Brooks about the finding of their son, who was very much alive and well. Without question and full urgency, Naomi and David agreed to meet. The meeting with Naomi and David Brooks was arranged in a public park, not a cafe. Detective Morales thought it would be wiser. Liam saw them from a distance, a woman with eyes exactly like his own, a man with his same stooped posture. As he approached, Naomi's hand flew to her mouth. David swayed on his feet, reaching for a bench. Naomi didn't speak. She simply reached out, her fingers hovering near his face. Then, tracing the air just above the faint crescent-shaped birthmark on his left forearm, a sound escaped her, an unconstrained mixture of a sob and a laugh. 18 years of mourning collapsed in an instant, replaced by a dizzy, terrifying resurrection. After discussing the abduction in its entirety, Liam expressed that he wanted to press charges on MARLA Cole. What followed was a whirlwind of legal and emotional chaos. MARLA Cole was arrested. The trial was not about whether she took him. The evidence was incontrovertible, but about the nature of the crime. The prosecution painted a picture of premeditated theft, of a life dismantled and shattered. The defense pleaded a tragedy of grief, of a woman broken by loss who created a life out of love, however misguided. Liam, who had legally become Liam Ethan Brooks, testified. He did not scream or cry on the stand. He spoke calmly about the confusion, the betrayal, the strange duality of loving the person who had caused such monumental pain. He described the haunting feeling of living a ghost life in a house that was a beautifully constructed cage. MARLA was sentenced to 15 years. At her sentencing, she finally looked at the Brooks family and uttered no apology. Only a final delusional, wrenching declaration. I would do it all again. He was my son too. The final encounter was not in a courtroom, but in a prison visitation room. Liam sat across from MARLA, who seemed smaller, faded. He looked her sternly in her eyes and proclaimed in a low, emotionless tone. I don't hate you, he said. I can't. You were my mom, but you were also the monster in my story. Now I have to live with both. MARLA nodded, tears streaming silently down her face. There was nothing left to say. The love was real. The crime was real. They both would carry the weight of that impossible equation forever. Liam walked out into the sunlight. He was a mosaic now. Pieces of Ethan, pieces of Liam, shaped by love and lies, by loss and rediscovery. He had been taken, but he had fought his way back to himself. His story was no longer one of a victim, but of a survivor who had reclaimed his own name, in doing so, had finally begun to live. The bonds of love can be the strongest force on earth. But what happens when that love becomes a prison built on a foundation of someone else's stolen pain? The story of Liam Brooks reminds us that the truth, no matter how long it's buried, has a gravity all on its own. And the most important story you could ever know is your own. If you are drawn into the story of identity, love, and justice, make sure you subscribe for more suspense. I'm Mimi, and this has been a step behind the yellow tape.